Canavan.
Thank you, Mr President. Earlier today, during question time, I had to withdraw a remark aimed at Senator Waters. I'll of course not repeat that remark here, and I do apologise for my undue outburst, but I want to explain why I did. In her question, Senator Waters stated that 42% of the Abbott cabinet is Catholic, including the Prime Minister himself, who of course once trained to be a Catholic priest. As was pointed out to Senator Waters at the time, her question was out of order because it was against a former President's ruling. Chapter 10 of Odgers states that it is not in order for a senator to refer to a senator's religion. Back in 2005, President Calvert stated his concerns about another Green senator, Senator Kerry Nettle, and he said in his ruling that Senator Nettle's question included a suggestion that the decisions of the Minister for Health and Ageing were influenced by his religious views. This was undoubtedly an imputation of improper motives against a member of the House of Representatives, contrary to Standing Order 1933, and should not have been made. Senators should refrain from any such imputations in the future. In 1969, President McMullen ruled that it is out of order to refer to a senator's religion, and I think that is a very sound rule which should be adhered to by all senators. So the Greens have form in this area. In fact, you can quite literally say they wrote the book on it. Greens Senator Larissa Waters, in a single question, managed to work in the fact that the Prime Minister Tony Abbott had trained at a Catholic seminary and that 42% of the cabinet are Catholic. It was an impressive achievement and it should be recognised. There are those who think that with the decline in sectarianism in Australia so many decades ago, the art of the religious dog whistle would be a dying art. Not so, not with the Greens around. The standard defence by those who use a dog whistle is one of straight-up denial. What? Who, me? That's exactly what we saw during question time. I was only trying to talk about the Pope's Encyclical on climate change. Sure, it would be like somebody opening up a talk about multiculturalism with the words, as you know, 100% of the Greens parliamentarians are white. It would be completely irrelevant, but it would also be completely true. Senator Waters' reference to the proportion of the cabinet who are Catholic was irrelevant and made in a pejorative tone, as if it was something shameful to be a Catholic, and even more reprehensible to train as a Catholic priest, pointing to the religion of a different cabinet ministers.
Senator Canavan.
Point of order, Acting Deputy President. As I said in the question, it was not intended in a disparaging manner. It was not said in a pejorative manner, and I ask Senator Canavan to withdraw that, as it's a false assertion of my asserting imputations to me which are not accurate and are in breach of standing orders.
Senator Canavan, I remind you not to impute any motives on any other senator.
Thank you, Madam Acting Deputy President. Pointing to the religion of different cabinet ministers in a question to the Senate lacks class. Of course, Senator Waters denied any implication behind her words because she wanted to land a blow without taking a swing. It was a cowardly claim and a cowardly act. It was cowardly bigotry through the use of a dog whistle. The Greens are massive hypocrites. The Greens speak of tolerance but practice intolerance. The Greens speak of equality but practice discrimination.
Order. For exactly the same standing order breach that we just referred to about imputing an improper motive, which is also an inaccurate motive, can I ask Senator Canavan to firstly desist and secondly to withdraw those slurs that he's just made on myself and my party?
Senator Canavan, I ask you to withdraw those comments, please.
Can I just ask a point of clarification exactly which comments I'm being asked to withdraw?
Senator Canavan, you imputed improper motives and you know what they are, and I ask you to withdraw, please.
I will withdraw, but if the senator wants to raise an additional point of order through you, Madam Acting Deputy President, it would be helpful to actually point out exactly what I'm saying, because I am pointing out to criticise a statement of another senator, which is perfectly should be allowed in this chamber, and it is not an improper motive. I'm not saying that the Greens are acting in an improper way. I'm saying that I'm pointing out the Greens' massive hypocrisy in this area, which senators do all the time and are welcome to. And it should be pointed out in this area in terms of the Greens, because they are massive hypocrites. They do preach tolerance all the time, like they are sweetness and light, but actually, when they go into practice things, they practice intolerance. They do speak of equality, but they actually practice discrimination. They do speak of human rights all the time, but then they feel free to mock people of certain religions. And Australians should reject.
Point of order.
I will
Senator Waters.
continue to take points of order while you continue, through you, Acting Deputy Chair, to impute improper motive to me as if I have somehow disparaged the religious beliefs of members of your party. That was not my intention. I will continue to say it while you continue to assert it. I ask you again to withdraw.
Senator Waters, that's a debating point.
Thank you, Madam Acting Deputy President. Australians should reject the Greens' divisive and resentful form of extremist politics. As a practising Catholic, I am fed up with how Catholics are portrayed by some, and some in this chamber and some in the media. The Catholic Church is far from perfect, and it's far from evil too. Some members of the Catholic Church have done some terrible things over times, and the Church deserves admonishment for those things. The Church itself has shown remorse and is trying, however imperfectly, to repent for those sins and of some of its members. What angers me most about the prejudice of some is their ignorance of the good works, their willful at times ignorance of the good works that many Catholics do. I met my wife volunteering at Edmund Rice camps when I was young, and on these camps, young volunteers like my wife and I gave up their university holidays to help disadvantaged children go camping. They were full of great young people, just striving to live by the example of Jesus Christ and help your fellow men. How is it, though, that an entire religion now can be denigrated for the sins of some? We should never denigrate the many for the mistakes of a few. None of this is to suggest that I think it is improper for Senator Waters to raise the Pope's encyclical. It was quite appropriate for Senator Waters to do that. It was inappropriate for her to, as the President did rule, to impugn motives to a Catholic cabinet ministers just because they were Catholic. I haven't had a chance to read the full encyclical myself. I have had a quick look at it, and the central lesson that I took from it, and this is where the Pope speaks with the most authority, I think, is that the well-being of humankind, in particular the poor, has to be front and centre when we look at complex issues like those of climate change. Pope Francis makes a very strong point that any policy must put humanity as its central concern, that the moral course is to use human well-being, in particular that of the poor, for our standard. The Pope says in it that it's not for the Church to settle scientific questions or to replace politics, and he highlights the need for honest and open debate. He states that for poor countries, the priorities must be to eliminate extreme poverty and to promote the social development of their people. At the same time, they need to acknowledge the scandalous level of consumption in some privileged sectors of their population and to combat corruption more effectively. He goes on to say that demographic growth is fully compatible with an integral and shared development. The most polluted places on earth are in the developing world, in countries without the benefit of industrial development and of cheap energy and electricity. So industrialisation and fossil fuels have a place too. When we push up power prices, it's the poor who suffer the most. So, also, in the 44,000 words in the encyclical, the word climate appears just 16 times. The most common words are human and God. Some other pressing moral issues identified by the Pope that the Greens might have missed, or at least hope the government will ignore, are the dangers of welfarism and the importance of the dignity of work in helping the poor. The Pope says that helping the poor financially must always be a provisional solution in the face of pressing needs. The broader objective should always be to allow them a dignified life through work. And he goes on to say that since everything is interrelated, concern for the protection of nature is also incompatible with the justification of abortion. How can we genuinely teach the importance of concern for other vulnerable beings, however troublesome or inconvenient they may be, if we fail to protect a human embryo, even when its presence is uncomfortable and creates difficulties? While the encyclical did not touch directly on the definition of marriage, the Pope spoke strongly on this in January this year when he said, "The family is also threatened by growing efforts on the part of some to redefine the very institution of marriage, by relativism, by the culture of the ephemeral, by a lack of openness to life." These are all important points that Pope Francis raises, and I welcome the Greens' newfound interest in the teachings of the Catholic Church, and I hope Senator Waters does take the time to read the full encyclical.